Hi students, welcome to the massive open online course on international economics. Today's module is module number 22. Students, you remember that while discussing the previous module, I told you that I will have another module that is in line with module number 21. And in module number 21, what we did? We discussed New Trade Theory 1. Now, we will discuss New Trade Theory 2. So, in module number 22, we will continue with what we have discussed in module number 21 under New Trade Theory 1. So, this New Trade Theory 2, as I promised at the end of my previous module, this New Trade Theory 2 takes off with the standard, I should not say standard, but it is slightly unconventional but standard utility function. This utility function is called love for variety utility function. This love for variety utility function, students, is very popular in industrial organization, in microeconomics, and also in international trade. I will surely discuss about this love for variety utility function. But before that, let me give you the structure. So this love for variety utility function is very popular in one part of market. The market is called monopolistic competition. So we will discuss monopolistic competition, both the short run and long run equilibrium of monopolistic competition, and then in monopolistic competition, what is economic efficiency per se, because monopolistically competitive market is economically inefficient. And monopolistic competition versus oligopoly in brief, and then mathematical expression or illustration for the monopolistic competition. And then you are probably surprised that I am talking about monopolistic competition and it is a module on new trade theory. Then where is trade? Don't worry, students. At the end of this module, I will try to explain you or try to convince you why monopolistic competition is a replica of the thing that is used in trade theory or new trade theory. So this entire monopolistic competition, love for variety, equilibrium price output, all are in line with trade, and this trade model is developed by Paul Krugman in 1979. In fact, there are three consecutive papers, 1979, 1980 and 1981. All these papers were published in three reputed journals, Journal of International Economy, and American Economic Review, and Journal of Political Economy. And, based on these three chapters, Paul Krugman got the Nobel Prize. You know that I talked about external economies of scale and internal economies of scale, and I'm not going into the details of those things because you already have a clear idea about those things. So what I said is that I will discuss the love for variety utility function. Now ask yourself, whenever you are going to your college or university or workplace, are you wearing white shirt every day? Are you wearing blue shirts every day? Are you wearing red shirts every day? No. The answer is simply no. If it is, then the next question, what is wrong if you go wearing white shirt every day? Nothing is wrong. Then why are you changing the color of shirts in alternate day or in every day? Because perhaps wearing one kind of shirt, it could be bush shirt, it could be t-shirt, is a kind of boring thing. So you actually try something else in terms of colors, something else in terms of quality, something else in terms of get-up. So we want different varieties. Because white shirt for all the years of your life is not going to give you much satisfaction. Rather, if you wear, white shirt today, black, tomorrow blue, then after that, in the next month, white sweater, and then blue sweater, and then, half sleeves jacket, everything. So all these mixed bundles is going to give you much satisfaction. So we essentially have a tendency to go for variety. In every sphere of life, we love variety. Because, look at your dining table. Every day you are not eating the same thing. It is not only because of nutritional requirement. It may also because of the fact that you love variety. So if you love variety and economics deals with the people like you and me, economics should have something that takes care of this love for variety. So our utility function is a love for variety utility function. So essentially, in a traditional thing, we assume that we have X and Y, two goods. But now our utility function is that we have X1, X2, X3, X4. All are X. But 1, 2, 3, 4 means they are varieties. White shirt is substitutable by black shirts. Black is by blue and blue is by red. But still, all the combinations are important to you because that gives you more satisfaction. That's the idea of love for variety utility function. And this love for variety utility function is very popularly used in monopolistically competitive market because the owner of white shirt, owner or the producer of black shirt, producer of blue shirts, all are monopolists. But these monopolists are not having extreme market power because their market power is largely restricted by the presence of a large number of substitutes: white, blue, black, red. So there is severe competition. So the market, they are monopolist, but they are facing competition. So that is why the market is called monopolistic competition. And this market is characterized by following things: that large number of buyers and sellers, products are differentiated, but they are close substitute. There is free entry and free exit in the market, and the firms are profit maximizers, but they will end up with zero profit, that you will get to know at the end of this lecture. And the prices and technologies are given in this setup. And the long run consists of multiple short runs because, in long run, what we do, we just plan. So whenever I produce the short run. So this long run is essentially amalgamation of all short run possibilities. And both the demand and cost curves are uniform throughout the group. This is called heroic assumption. Mind it, I am not using the industry term here. What I am saying is that it is a group. Industry means when all the goods produced by different firms are homogeneous. But here the goods produced by different firms are not homogeneous, rather heterogeneous. Maybe slightly differentiated, but they are differentiated. So you cannot call them industry. That must not be industry. So if it is not industry, then how can I club them? I can call them group. Now, very quickly, let me come to the diagrams, because this is a diagram that perhaps it is used in monopolistic competition. But here I have not used two demand curves that we usually use in monopolistic competition. One is perceived demand curve, the other is proportional demand curve. Here it is in a perceived demand curve because perceived demand curve is the demand curve that guides the producer. So depending on perceived demand curve, I have the marginal revenue curve. So it is the perceived marginal revenue curve. So all these negatively sloping lines are perceived demand and perceived marginal revenue. And students, I want to remind you one thing, that the equilibrium must take place at the point where the perceived demand curve must intersect the proportional demand curve. So here in the hind side of the diagram, though I have not drawn here, there is a demand curve which is like this one, because this perceived and proportional demand curves are intersecting at the point from where I draw the price and the equilibrium output. Now here, the standard shape of the average cost curve and the marginal cost curve, AC is U-shaped and the marginal cost curve is also U-shaped. Marginal cost curve passes through the minimum point of average cost curve, and the equilibrium takes place at the point where the marginal revenue and the marginal cost curves are intersecting each other, and the intersection point is denoted by this. And the corresponding equilibrium price and output are PSR and QSR, where SR stands for the short run, because students, you remember that I told you in equilibrium we may have something, but in the long run we plan, but whatever we do or produce, that is in the short run. So all these are short run cases. So whenever I do this thing, if you look at this diagram very carefully, that for this output short run QSR, total revenue is this much, because this is the price and this is the quantity, so this is the total revenue that one can earn. But how much is the cost of production for producing QSR? So draw a vertical line from this point up to the average cost curve. Follow my cursor here. I'm going up, going up, going up, and then stopping the moment it crosses the average cost curve. So from there, you draw a line parallel to the horizontal axis in this way to the left, to the vertical axis. So now this is the area under the average cost curve, and up to QSR is your total cost of production. So now if you look at the diagram, this is your total revenue and this is your cost. So this shaded area is your profit. Now look, there is pre-entry and pre-exit what I had in the assumption set. So if there is profit, more firms will come in, and more firms will come in means there would be some adjustment and changes in the demand curve, position of marginal revenue curve, etc., and leading to a situation that in the long run, in the end, you will have this kind of equilibrium where your revenue is this and your cost is also equal to this. Therefore, here we will have no profit or no loss. You can try yourself that, I have mentioned here, the loss case can also be explained here. So at panel B, the equilibrium, this is called the long run equilibrium, where price is equal to average cost, but price is greater than the marginal cost. When price is equal to average cost, it is a feature of, students, you remember, the perfectly competitive market. And when price is greater than marginal cost curve, from there you can see that you have some sort of, market power, but market power is not giving you the profit because of free entry and free exit. So this is the underlying arguments for the monopolistically competitive market. Now the question that I said in the beginning slide, that whether this kind of market is efficient or not. Monopolistically competitive market is inefficient. Why? Because you are having love for variety utility function. You can have a lot of varieties only under this model, because perfectly competitive market assumes that all shirts are white, all shirts are blue, all shirts are black. You cannot have more varieties. So the reality is that you have variety in the market, but that market is inefficient. The point is that since you have variety, this is inefficient. There is a price for variety, and you are paying some price more than the cost of production. And here in this diagram, this is a form of market which is perfectly competitive one, and the market is efficient. Now compared to this thing, in this market, your equilibrium price is equal to average cost, but mind it, that average cost is not the minimum average cost. So the firm is not producing efficiently. Firm is producing, and firm is not making profit. In spite of that, firm is producing inefficiently, and that inefficiency is denoted by panel B in my slide here, that at price PMC, you are not producing at the minimum of AC. Minimum of AC is here. So this shaded area is a kind of inefficiency, or we can call it in economics terms that this is called deadweight loss. So deadweight loss I am not explaining in detail, but that happens, that exists in monopolistically competitive market. Means that in realistic world, if trade takes place and it is guided by monopolistically competitive market, we have to bear with this kind of inefficiency. And there are inefficiencies in monopolistically competitive market, and there are two more things in this type of market structure that one should keep in mind. One is that as there are enough firms in the market, the monopoly power is small for each firm. So nobody can exploit you much, just like what you had in monopoly, because there is severe competition. And the differentiated products give utility to the consumer. This is what I hinted at. And the consumer enjoys more utility by the choice available to them, because white, red, black shirts, these are the choices you have now. And these are under the same product group. And this love for variety by the consumer plays a very important role in modeling international trade. Means it is the new trade theory. But students, you might get confused with the thing that what is the difference between the monopolistically competitive market and oligopoly? Just to make things clear, let me tell you very few points. So you should not confuse between monopolistic competition and oligopoly structure. In both these cases, market structure, we do not have very large number of firms. And in oligopolistic markets, the firms are so large that they are interdependent, but they have some sort of market power. But in monopolistic competition, no firm has market power. I mean the market power so that you can influence the price. So in oligopoly, you can set price, but in monopolistically competitive market, you cannot. And in monopolistic competition is a market structure where firms cannot influence total industry output or prices, and their pricing decisions are not interrelated to each other, just like the oligopoly case. So it is in contrary to the oligopoly case, monopolistic market, the firms are actually not having much power in respect of pricing, in respect of exploiting the consumer and other things. So with this basic structure, now we need to move to the mathematical construction for the monopolistic competition, from where we can have a clear picture about what is going to happen to the market. Because in monopolistic competition, since the number of goods or the varieties we consume is important, we need to calculate how many varieties we can produce, and then if we go on expanding the market and trade with each other, whether that may lead to reduction in price or not. This is what we explained in my previous module. Let us start from the demand structure faced by the firm. A firm will sell more, or it could be less, the larger the demand for its product and higher the price charged by its rival. The equation that we have here is, students, you need to look at the equation very carefully. Total market, this Q demand is, this S may stand for the total output of the industry. So industry means you can call it product group, and N is the number of firms in the industry, so total number of firms, and this B stands for positive constant. As we know, in case of a standard demand function, Q is equal to A minus BP. It takes such kind of form, but you need to do a little bit of calculations at home so that you can solve everything. But I'm pretty sure that you will not find it very difficult to get the results here. But I'm explaining what is the intuition here. So this B and multiplied by P minus P bar. This P bar is something new here. So P bar is essentially the price or the average price charged by my competitor. If you ask yourself, if your competitor charge a relatively low price, then what is going to happen to your output? If my competitor charges a relatively low price, means P bar is low. This means P minus P bar is high. So B into P minus P bar is high. And I have an operational negative sign here. So P bar is low, means this is high. I'm again reiterating. P minus P bar is high, means B into this is high. If B into this is high, then 1 by N minus this thing, this negative part or subtracting part is high, means this value would be low. So what is the idea? So if my competitor charges a low price, the demand for my product would be low, which is quite normal. If my competitor charges a high price, then from the reverse argument, the demand for my product would be low. This is the intuitive explanation, and I have framed here a relatively complicated demand functions. It is not that I have formulated this thing. I have drawn this demand function from the standard textbooks. So if we use this demand function, we will surely and very easily arrive at some results that is consistent with monopolistic competition and the related trade possibilities. Now the following points can be noted about the demand functions. All firms charge the same price, and each will have a market share of 1 by N, means if the total industry output is S, then my share as one individual firm in the market is S by N. So share is 1 upon N. And all the firms are symmetric here. Symmetric means if I calculate the price charged by firm J, then that price is going to be charged by all the firms in the market. And eventually, if the prices are same, then all the firms are going to sell identical units of output. So Q would be same, and for S, if I divide S by N, I will get the Q, and then how to calculate the price, that I will explain one by one. So here Q is essentially equal to S, I said S by N, and S into B into P minus P bar. This is what I have drawn from this thing, right? So the equation becomes like this. So if P is equal to P bar, if my rivals and I charge the same price, then Q is essentially equal to S by N. Means, P is equal to P bar means this is equal to 0. So this term comes down to 0. A firm charging more than the average of other firms means P is greater than P bar. If they charge a relatively high price, then this firm will have lower market share. So if P is greater than P bar, Q must be, the smaller market share, and where the firms charging less, then we'll have a larger market share. So this is what is going to happen here, and total industry output S, that remains unaffected by the price P bar. So it does not matter whether the other firms are charging. So firms can gain customer only at others' expense. So what is the bottom line is that if I want to gain, someone has to lose. If some firms lose the customers, then that customer will come to me, and that customer will come to me if I can charge lower price. If I can charge lower price, then what is going to happen? More customers will come to me, I'll produce more, my average cost of production will go down, and then again I will be able to cut down the price further. So that's the argument here. So now the cost structure, this cost structure is very typical, and this has been used by Paul Krugman in his pioneering work. So this is the total cost function of the firm. The total cost function of the firm is C is equal to F plus C into Q. This F stands for fixed cost, and C is the marginal cost, and this is Q is the total output. So fixed cost, as you know, it does not matter whether you produce or not, you have to incur this cost, just like the building. Once you build the building, it does not matter whether you produce or not. This cost associated with the building remains same. So the average cost is equal to C by Q. It is equal to F upon Q plus C. So the more you produce, Q goes up, so F by Q goes down, and C remains same. Therefore, the more is the output, the value of F by Q plus C is falling. Therefore, the average cost is falling. Students, you remember that I explained in my previous module that average cost curve is gradually falling from left to right. So means along the horizontal axis, if you produce more, then average cost will gradually fall. And this is what is happening here. More Q, this F by Q falls, so your average cost falls. And the firms are symmetric. This is what I explained before. So now how to get the market equilibrium? So as we have assumed that the firms are symmetric, we do not need to look inside them. If we just know number of firms in the industry and the P bar means the average price charged by other firms, we can talk about the state of the industry. So to determine N and P bar, we will proceed in 3 steps. What are the steps? Listen to these steps carefully, and you remember these 3 steps for the remaining part of your life. Because if you want to do something on trade theory, you need to follow these 3 steps. Derive the relationship between number of firms, N. Number of firms is N, small n. And the average cost of the firm means AC. AC is the thing that I explained in my previous slide here. Deriving the relationship between number of firms and the price. Price is the P, not P bar. P bar is the price of the other firm's average price. And finding the equilibrium number of firms. And once we get to know the equilibrium number of firms, I can easily calculate Q. How? We will come to know one by one. So this relationship between average cost and the number of firms is actually, if I rewrite this thing, AC is equal to F by Q plus C. Students, you remember that Q, if I go back to the slide very quickly, you can check that Q is equal to S by N. So if it is Q is equal to S by N, now let me substitute this Q is equal to S by N. So this equation comes down to what? AC is equal to N into this plus C. So this tells us that there is a positive relationship between the average cost and number of firms. So if the number of firms goes up, number of firms is N. So if it goes up, this thing is going up, and plus C, it is increasing, therefore average cost will increase. So I will have a positive relationship between N, number of firms in the industry, and the average cost. And I will try to put this argument in a diagram later on. And the relationship between quantity and the average cost is negative, and it is apparent from here. Means this is the idea behind economies of scale. The more you produce, your average cost will gradually go down. Now, the relationship between number of firms and the price a firm charges. Now here again, let us rewrite the equation. This Q was equal to S by N. You remember, this is the equation that I had written before in one of my previous slides. You draw from there and then you just expand this. That was S multiplied by B into P minus P bar. So that was a minus there, and P minus P bar. So minus and minus, it is plus. So it is P bar plus and minus is B P bar. You go back to the slide, the original equation. You do a little bit of calculations. Use your hand and pen and piece of paper. You will get. This is very easy. And then this has some similarity with the standard, this demand function Q is equal to A minus BP. If you calculate the marginal revenue from this demand function, then you get that the marginal revenue becomes MR is equal to P minus Q by B. So that's the idea. So now how to get the equilibrium? This is very standard. Equate MR and MC and then get the equilibrium that P is equal to this. Because that was my MR, and from I already know that the MC is equal to C. So therefore, this is my MR is equal to C, and now you get the equilibrium price. Now, as I derived before, I can substitute this Q is equal to S by N in this equation where P is calculated like this, and eventually what I get, P is equal to C plus 1 by B multiplied by N. So this means that more is the number of firms in the industry. More is the number of firms in the industry, lower is the price of each firm is going to charge. So more firms, more competition. So the existing firms need to charge a lower price. Otherwise, they cannot survive in the market. That's the idea behind some sort of gains from trade. Means the consumer's utility are increasing on both counts. One is they are getting more variety. The two is that the price is going down. So we can also see that this through a rearranging equation, P is equal to P minus C, and this P minus C is essentially the market power. Market power means the monopoly power, or in monopolistic competition, the market power that the producer is enjoying. More is the number of firms, N, the market power or the difference between P minus C will gradually die down. So that's the idea. And this is again the finding the equilibrium, how to get. You put these values in relevant equations, then you will get the price here like this thing, and this is the equilibrium. And if you do a little bit of manipulation in this equation, you get the number of firms here like this thing, and Q is equal to S by N and this. So the bottom line here is that the relationship that I said is that the average cost curve. So here what is going to happen? Here I am putting number of firms and the cost curve here. So more is the number of firms, AC is going to go up, and this is represented by C. And the more is the number of firms, P is equal to this, N goes up, so P goes down, and this is denoted by the line PP. These two PP and CC curves are very much famous in international trade theory. You must know, students, the recent, wave of Meillet's models also uses these two curves, and from the equilibrium, you calculate the number of firms, N2, and the price and the average cost curve. And from here, you can check if the number of firms falls below N2, then the average cost or the price that you will have here will be greater than the average cost. And if your N2 is, number of firms is more than N2, then, your average cost is going to be much higher, AC3, and price is going to be P3. So apart from N2, whatever number of firms you consider, there is discrepancy between price and average cost. If the price is higher than average cost, the firms are earning supernormal profit. And if the price is lower than average cost, some firms must exit the market because they are facing loss. Now, the other thing is that what is going to happen if the size of the market expands? So if the size of the market expands, then S is going to go up. If S goes up, then average cost falls. And from the previous diagram, my average cost curve is denoted by CC prime, CC1, and now it will shift. Not shift, it will rotate towards right because it is going down. And the implication is that the equilibrium is taking place at 2. Previously, the equilibrium was at 0.1. So now the indication of equilibrium at 0.2 is that the price is low. So more is the size of the market, the equilibrium price would be low and the number of firms will be higher. And the number of firms will be higher means more variety is going to be produced by the firms, and more variety is going to be produced by the firms implies that the utility of the consumer is going to go up. So, and the size of the market can be expanded only if the countries are opened up for trade. If both the countries opens for trade, then the size of the market goes up, S goes up, average cost falls, price goes down, number of varieties goes up. That is essentially gain in welfare. So this gain in welfare is triggered by increasing in the size of the market, and if you have love for variety utility function and your average cost curve is gradually falls, the more you produce. That's the idea of new trade theory. So with this note, I come to an end of this new trade theory. I'm pretty sure that students, you would be able to extend this idea of understanding of new trade theory in your life future, because the recent development of international trade theory and policy are mainly hovering around the idea of new trade theory. So students, thank you very much.